Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Susan Penfield.
Hi, everybody.
How's it going, Susan?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Can you guys hear in the back? It's good?
Can y'all hear me?
Okay, good.
Okay, I'm loud.
All right. So, well, thank you very much, Susan, for coming out here.
Thank you for having me.
We actually try really hard at Startup Grind to get more female speakers. I told you before, like, actually.
It's on your website. I was a little worried.
No. So the
Nobody had any high heel shoes.
So the backstory is, like, I've put out like requests to at least 30 women.
Yeah.
You know, at least 30 women, and I have a very low hit rate, so I am really so stoked that I got you, right? So
I joined the Cupcake Ladies.
right, exactly. Yeah.
It was awesome.
So we always like to start our interview on a personal note. So talk about like, so we always go from the beginning, like where were you born, where you raised,
Yep.
maybe talk about, you know, what your parents did, and then, you know, what did you do before Booz Allen,
Yep.
before you became such a rock star executive.
And
So
I correct you, I'm 24 years.
24 years, okay, sorry,
You can have
24
a
years.
cake next year.
Next year, right?
Yes. So I joined, I was born in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Anybody know where that is? Look, my nephew's in the audience, so he knows. I actually knew him when he was born, so. But I grew up in a small town, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Population, I don't know, 30,000. Anybody play Little League Baseball? Any guys? The girls weren't playing then, but they are now. So that's the home of the Little League World Series, which people go to every year, which is really exciting. 2 weeks in August, I think about 80,000 people take over Williamsport, Pennsylvania, so that's exciting. But my parents were both, blue-collar workers. My dad worked for Bethlehem Steel initially, and then he actually went on to be a bus driver for Continental Trailways. And I told the story the other day, and I had a little tear in my eye, but I think I can do it. My dad had a heart attack when he was in his late 30s, survived, and lived till about 81 and passed away a few years ago. But at that time, my dad was out of work, right? He was a bus driver. You could not drive a bus if you had a heart condition. It was well before the time that we have all these amazing drugs and all the things that they can do with medicine today. But my dad went back to school. As a 40-year-old man, he went to school with a bunch of college kids at the local community college, and his coursework was in fixing computers and office machines, and computers were emerging as a new technology at that point. And so my roots come from my dad, who I think overcame, amazing adversity at his age in that era. Went back to school. I remember him coming home, and he graduated with a 4.0. So, shout out to my dad in heaven. Yeah. He really shaped me for who I am today. And I knew that at that point I could do anything and be anything. And, I went to a small college in Pennsylvania, had a great, upbringing, 12 years of Catholic school. Walked up the street every day to past the church, went to church probably certainly every Sunday, but, in Catholic school, they make you go a couple times a week too. So, my passion for philanthropy and for doing good is really born out of the way I grew up. And I was one of those people who really was less fortunate. My family had to get food stamps when my dad was sick and recovering. And I got free lunches at school, and a lot of the folks in the town actually paid for my tuition to go to school. So one of the things I always wanted to do, if I became successful, was that I was going to give back. And it's really been a passion of mine, for a number of years. So that's the early years for me. And then after college, there were about 3 jobs in Williamsport, Pennsylvania that women could do. One was like the marketing director of the hospital. One was work at a radio station. And one was be a lawyer, and there were a lot of lawyers around at that point in time. So I took the radio station job, and I was a copywriter. I actually wrote commercials and did on-air production for a radio station. It was kind of fun. I mean, my degree degree was sort of something called management science, so who knows what that is today, but it was a good liberal arts education with a good background to kind of jump in and do anything. And I did that for a couple years, and that is how I met my husband, which is a really kind of a cute story. The precursor to Match.com was something called Matchmaker International. And back then, you filled out the dating questionnaire by hand, and you had dating counselors who would call you on the phone and try to make a match for you. Well, I had my husband, who was working at the radio station at that point in time. He had just joined the radio station as a salesperson, and I thought, well, isn't he cute? I'm like, amen, a cute guy finally works at this radio station. So everybody else smoked, and I don't know, they just were terrible. So anyway, he's cute and he's Catholic, for heaven's sakes. I had seen him in church, and I had him come in, and I wrote a commercial for him to be my lonely guy. And so I had him do this commercial, and he did a 60-second sort of lonely guy commercial. And my nephew will attest that my husband doesn't do anything fast. He is slow as molasses in January. So I was in that studio with him for hours trying to get him to get through the script and to get the commercial done in 60 seconds. So suffice it to say, the rest is history. We ended up, getting married and, actually moving to Washington a few years later. And I came down here and I worked initially at a shopping center, and I ran the whole Merchants Association. I did all the creative, events for the mall, and I did the George Washington's Cherry Pie Contest, the world's largest ice cream sundae, fashion shows, you name it, I did it. I was making, I think, probably $15,000 a year, working every weekend. But I thought it was the best thing in the world, because when I would drive into Washington, D.C., and I would see the Arlington Cemetery and the Washington Monument, I thought, I made it. I'm here, and I can do anything. I'm looking at the Washington Post. I'm like, there's a million jobs here. I'm going to be able to do anything. So I ended up looking in the paper and said, I don't want to work weekends anymore. And I found a job with a small woman-owned business, which you could call it a startup. Back then, they didn't call them startups, but it was a woman from Wisconsin who wanted to start a government consulting firm. She was very much a science-based person, so a lot of our work was for NASA, U.S. Geological Survey, and a number of other, National Science Foundation, a number of other scientific clients. And I learned a lot from her. I worked there for 7 years, and I basically started out, I was, the assistant to the president, which was her. And I emptied her ashtray, I cleaned up her desk, I typed her memos on an IBM Selectric, and I grew up in that business. And I ended up, by the time I left, I was, a vice president. It was now a 300-person company. It started out as about 10. And I always feel like, I found her and she found me. She needed somebody to really organize her and direct her in the right way, and to put some real energy and structure into that company. She was more of a free spirit. And I learned so much from her because she was really an entrepreneur and a risk taker and fearless. And I think she instilled that in me as I went on, to my next journey. And one of the companies I worked with during that time was Booz Allen. And I got to work as a subcontractor to a lot of Booz Allen folks. And so when it came time for that company to be sold off, and I had a little bit of a stake into it, and it got sold off actually north of Drummond, for anybody who knows a Beltway bandit here. And I decided I really wanted to go work at Booz Allen. And so I called up one of the guys that I had been subcontracting to and said, hey, you got any jobs, over at Booz Allen? I think it'd be really fun to start out there. And, I got hired, and sort of the rest, here we are 24 years later, and I've had, a really long journey in Booz Allen with a lot of different opportunities and roles. But I came in, for folks who are here, as an associate. And back in the day, we didn't have lead associate and vice president, but I actually made partner in 8 years during that time. So, I kicked in on all cylinders and said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to kind of, not make it to the top, but to achieve, the dreams that I had when I actually came to Washington. So that's my story.
I mean, it's actually very, very amazing. Just the story you just described with your father being on food stamps and then emptying out ashtrays. Yeah. I had a conversation just recently with a friend who worked at Deloitte. It's very similar to Booz. Yeah. He made partner, and I was just like, whatever. Like, I didn't know what that meant, so I just kind of looked it up. Like, what does it mean when we're partner, right? It's like oh my God, look how much money these guys make, right? And so like,
That's why it's charitable.
so this is really amazing because like here you are, you're one of the highest executive, you're at one of the highest position executive at one of the biggest companies here, Beltway Bandits here in DC.
Yeah.
Now you're looking back and it's just like, wow. I mean,
know, pinch me.
Yeah.
Who knew it could happen? And
Yeah.
I am truly the epitome of small town girl makes good. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just was, a little bit lucky, a hard worker with a good work ethic, and a lot of great people that, I was able to, work with and who helped me, on my journey. So I am truly blessed, and that is why, I feel really passionate about this work that I can do now at this point in my career, for women, for veterans, for all the other causes that I care about, for the startup community, for social good, et cetera.
So we're gonna get into some of the tactical strategies that we can share to you guys or gals, and there's another Susan in the audience, and
like 10 of them. Or 20 of them are,
and so
all the girls in here can do it, all the ladies.
We're gonna talk about mentorship and protege and all that stuff. But let's go first. Start off with Booz Allen.
Take it slow.
Let's tell a little bit about Booz Allen.
Okay.
And its corporate journey, and then let us know what. Because you could have selected any company, right?
Sure.
So what?
I couldn't have selected any company when I was way back in the day.
Right.
I was 30-some years old. But Booz Allen is a 104-year-old startup, we call it, right? We were founded in 1914. We actually invented management consulting. We certainly invented it in the federal government. We did work for the Navy in the 1940s during World War II. And we've gone on to build a significant $6 billion business on the federal side. We also had a commercial sector that we sold off several years ago, but then came back to commercial. So we have a commercial and international sector now as well. We went public in 2010. We were acquired by a private equity to help us to separate from the commercial business, and we are now on our journey to be what I think is a world-class technology solutions company, not only for the federal government, but for the Fortune 100 and also global governments around the world. And we did that, really with purpose. We stood up the Strategic Innovation Group. For all of you in Booz Allen, we call it the SIG, 6 years ago. I have been the leader of it for the last 3, and I was in it for a year, so I wasn't in the initial instantiation of that group. But the goal was to really renew who we are, renew our brand value, inspire our talent, and really change the game for us in the sector, right? While others were hunkering down and not spending any money, Booz Allen invested, and we invested during that downturn. And now we are ready to reap the benefits of, an economy that is, truly back in action. So for all of you, we're, I think, 0% unemployment for the tech sector. So the recruiting is hard, but it has been, an amazing journey. And, we set aside a group of people who we had focused on next generation technology, on building our own products and solutions, on collaborating with the startup community. We have what we call innovation hubs that are across the country: Austin, Boston, San Francisco, among other places. We have applied innovation hubs. We have one in Central Maryland that is adjacent to the National Security Agency campus, which you'll appreciate, around cyber, where we're doing some really interesting, absolutely leading edge, next generation cyber work. And we're investing in all the things that you think we would be investing in secure mobility and artificial intelligence, et cetera. And we have as good as or better leading edge capabilities as major players in the tech sector, and they want to collaborate with us. We have partners like Dell, like Google, like Microsoft, like NVIDIA. We're in partnerships with them, and we're co-creating and collaborating on technology development. And that was our mantra. When we opened our innovation center and when we took this journey, it was don't go it alone. And Kurt Shears over here, he's the director of our innovation center, And he was one of the guys who helped coin, that innovation philosophy and what we would really do and how we would go about it, and really on a maturity curve, right? We would start out and we would, be churning and burning, and then by year 5, we would have that innovation culture, that spirit, that entrepreneurship, that technical capability instantiated through Booz Allen. And I'm here to say in year 6, it's there. And we are now, it's our time to really reap the benefit of all the investments we have made. So it's a journey. I mean, if you think about a 104-year-old company, we always say it's not your father's Booz Allen.
Yeah,
so.
right. So, obviously you've given us the 50,000-foot view. And so I'm going to ask this question for the benefit of half the crowd here, because Booz employees, and I learned this from the ICF interview that I had with Kesavon. Well, so the thing is that I was like, why are there there's so many ICF employees here, right? It's like, can't they just see them in the office? And because it's so big, they don't know, they'll see you hey, Suzanne, right? and then you, sure. So the question would be what does a typical day look for Susan Penfield?
There you go.
So what does it look like a typical day?
First off, let me say about our amazing Booz Allen talent, you are amazing and wonderful, and we value you in every, dimension. So, I'm delighted that you're all here and that you've come out to support, not only me, but also Booz Allen. So thank you for that. And my typical day is really a little bit strategy, a little bit operations, and a little bit, engaging with both our talent and also the external ecosystem. In this role I have today as a leader of the Strategic Innovation Group, I get the title Chief Innovation Officer. So it gives me a license to could go around and talk to really whoever I want to in the tech sector. So I have a lot of engagements with some of these major technology partners that we're working with today. I also run a big team. I have a 2,000-person team. And my chief of staff is here, Logan Gibson, so she knows what I do every day on a regular basis. But there's a lot of operational things that we do. There's obviously things around IP. We have the attorneys here. I'm usually on the phone with the attorneys at least an hour or two a day. Today we negotiated our final agreement with Dell, and I can tell you when two big companies come together to negotiate an agreement, we need a lot of paper, and we need a lot of clauses that we go through. So we had a 4-page summary of a 300-page agreement document that we went through with the lawyers today. So that might be called the mind-numbing part of my job. But ask the right questions. I got a ton of attorneys with me, and I got a lot of amazing people who support me and help me think about that. But the most exciting thing I get to do actually is to go out and see what all of you do, in our spaces with our clients. And last week I got to open up this new innovation center in Central Maryland, adjacent to the NSA campus, and just seeing all the cool things that we have developed and sitting side by side with the folks up there and learning what they're doing and the kind of problems they're solving, and the kind of missions that they have passion about is just incredible. And honestly, going on the road and being out there with all the folks in the firm is the best thing I get to do every day. And I know our CEO, Horacio, will say the same thing. He tries to take a trip a month where he will then, put out a trip report to all of you guys and let you know what he saw and heard and the folks that he met. But it's his favorite thing. So I appreciate all of you, and I love to spend more time with you. So hopefully we'll get to do it after, and you're always welcome in my house.
Okay, cool. So I wanted to sort of follow up on what you just mentioned. So I have questions about the Booz Allen Innovation Center, but since you mentioned about the Annapolis, the iHub, Central Maryland Innovation Hub, and at the Annapolis Junction, right? 15,000 square feet. Okay. Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, it seems like there's NSA, U.S. Cyber Command, cyber operations. So what was the thinking behind that? Why did you guys build it, and what do you guys want to accomplish with that?
So one of the things that is part of our innovation agenda is, one, to have interesting, innovative spaces for our staff to work and for us to create and collaborate with startup partners, with tech companies, but also with our clients. And so the Innovation Center in DC is sort of in the middle of all of the government agencies that are down there, and Kurt can correct me on this, but I think we had like 17,000 government folks and other folks come through that center last year. We have 4,000, moving to 5,000 people in Central Maryland working in the National Security Agency and in Cyber Command, doing really leading edge technology initiatives, both in cyber and in AI, certainly in digital and software development. And we felt like having a space there where our clients could come in and collaborate with us and be exposed to next generation kinds of technologies would be something that we really wanted to put our energy into. And so we're calling those applied innovation hubs. They're places that are spaces where people can work, where they can collaborate, where they can get learning and development on next generation technology, but also really be exposed to the kind of work we're doing for a particular client. And the NSA, for people who don't know them, they are really at the leading edge of technology, and a lot of the things that we have invested in to date were really born out of assignments that we have done, at the NSA. Certainly can't say any more about it than that, but it is really truly leading edge stuff in all dimensions of technology. And our partners are also represented there. We have infrastructure and computing power and equipment from HP, from Microsoft, from NVIDIA, and we are working, with their technical talent to think about sort of next generation things that we can do together. So lots of cool things are happening there. If you're in Booz Allen, take a trip up. If you haven't been there, it's a great location. It's actually twice the size of the Innovation Center in DC. So I only hope that we're going to be able to steal a little more space in DC and build that out over time.
And you actually have a lot of these spaces all over the United States. I mean, this is the one in Annapolis was the sixth one, but you have one in Austin, Boston, San Francisco, Seattle.
Yep.
Are they kind of working the same purpose as well? Like with
different, a little bit different.
Talk about those, yeah.
So we have spaces that we own, and they're our space, and we invite people in. We also are co-located with incubators. So we are co-located with Galvanize in San Francisco.
Okay.
We're co-located with Capital Factory in Austin. We're co-located with Cambridge Innovation Center in Boston. So we have spaces where we actually join together with the innovation community, and we work elbow to elbow with startups. One cool thing that we're doing in Austin, we just took a much bigger space in the Capital Factory, and the goal there is to be side by side with government incubators. So organizations like DIUX, AFWorks, other government incubators, we are going to be working side by side on. We also have centers for excellence in those particular areas, and in Austin it is our AR and VR Center for Excellence. And so we have a lot of, a mass of talent there that is expert in that particular area.
Is that focus on government, like
It's
with
focused
most
on
of these?
government, and we also have, we have a commercial business. Our commercial business is largely focused on cyber today, but also there's a lot of companion technology to cyber. AI, of course, is going to revolutionize, how we protect our networks and, our infrastructure. So there's a lot of integrated technology that we also provide to the commercial sector.
So this interview is recorded, and it's going to be actually folks from Silicon Valley, Austin, Boston. They'll be able to listen to this interview. So the question would be like, if I'm a startup,
Yep.
are you looking? First of all, are you working with startups in these innovation
We do.
centers? And then what are you looking for
So we
if
have
I'm listening to this interview? Like,
Sure, yeah. So we have particular areas that we're focused on. Cyber is one area, digital, next generation digital, AI. So if you have startups in those areas, what we're calling immersive, but AR, VR, we're interested in your next generation technology, either collaborating with you to bring that technology to market. Is your technology viable in the government sector? Is it, is it viable in the commercial sector? Will we make investments? Maybe, depending on what the technology is. We have sort of three-way partner agreements where we work with a large tech, and then Booz Allen as a tech, as a consulting and technology firm, and then a startup. So there's lots of iterations on how we can collaborate together. I think we can, and we also want to mentor and support startups as they bring their technology to market. So we were talking earlier about, could we validate your idea? And is it a relevant, good idea, given what we know about the cyber landscape and what we're doing both in offensive operational and defensive cyber, we have a great understanding of what technologies are out there and the kind of things that would be disruptive in that environment. So absolutely, we are working shoulder to shoulder. We have a tech scouting capability that is resident in those what we call innovation hubs around the country. And they are, I would say, tech scouting with purpose against the kind of things that we're interested in our innovation agenda.
I feel like you're teeing me up for the next question because you talked about mentorship. So I would like to talk about you're very big in mentorship, right? And in fact, if you Google her name, like the word mentorship pops up pretty often. And so tell us about because you have been a mentor and also a mentee, like a protege. So talk about how important is it to find a mentor, a sponsor, and regardless of whether you're female, a minority, whatever. How important is it to find a mentor?
So first off, I think mentorship is absolutely important. You need the person who can say what needs to be said in order to catapult or change the direction of your career. And mentorship has to really be symbiotic, right? You both have to put energy into it, and you have to have a trusted relationship with a mentor. So in the old days of Booz Allen, they used to assign you a mentor, and I'd be like, I don't think that mentor's the one for me. Maybe I don't have a relationship or I don't click with that person. So, I would seek out, my mentors inside Booz Allen, and I would identify the people I thought I could build a relationship with, and then I would get the advice and counsel that would be honest, transparent, and supportive of me. In any organization, there's politics, and when you get to the top of an organization, there's competition, right? Everybody wants to, achieve their agenda, and everyone has their own proteges and the people that they sponsor that they want to advance, and so you have to be really strategic in how you navigate all of that. We call that political savvy, but that is something that, some people have and some people don't, but it's something that I learned very quickly you needed to have if you're going to navigate, an organization like Booz Allen. And so I sought out, certainly internal mentors, people who could be my sponsor. And a sponsor and a mentor are different. A sponsor can pound their fist on the table and say, I want Susan to do this job right now because she needs a set of experiences and this is going to help her progress. So that person has clout, they have influence, and they can pound their fist on the table for you. A mentor could be that person behind the scenes that's just kind of giving you advice, like, hey, I had a rough day, here's what happened, can you kind of counsel me through this? Did I say the right thing? What should I have said? And really help be that, sort of that supporter and that person who lifts you up. I also think it's great to have outside mentors. So my best mentor, honestly, and someone who's gave me the best advice is a woman who she was the COO for Time Inc. And I met her through a set of women's initiatives that we were both participating in. She now has a company called Flynn Heath Holt where she does counseling and support and mentoring, of women on a large scale. Like she's come in and really helped Booz Allen think about our women's agenda and our program. She's done it at Deloitte, Accenture, other big companies. But she really gave me the best advice because she's dispassionate about my organization, right? She doesn't know all the players, and so she can listen to me and really be what I would call 100% objective and kind of give me the hit between the eyes if I need it. And she goes, do you know what you sound like? This is what you sound like. And she's another thing is she's a real, like a confidence bolster, right? When you think you get a new job, and I don't know if this is true of for any of you in the room, but for me, when I get a new job, I'm like nervous that I'm not going to be able to do that job. I'm like a wreck, like, oh my God, they picked me. Why'd they pick me? What am I doing? Can I really do this? And I think that might be a female thing. Sorry, ladies, but we feel like we really need to know that job 100% before we walk in the door and do it. She really gave me the courage, and the tenacity to just dive in and say, you know what? I don't know what to do about being a chief innovation officer or running the strategic innovation group, but I ran a really good health business and I built that to $600-700 million. I can do anything. And so she would constantly be that little voice in my head saying, you can do it, you can do it, you can achieve it, keep trying, don't doubt yourself. So I think that external mentor can really be a big help in just boosting your ego and really helping you overcome things that you find challenging.
So, there was a research out there that had basically did a survey of successful women out there, and one of the things they said they found was that the majority of these successful women actually had a sponsor, actually had a mentor. And so the thing is the question would be like, you know, hey, I'm talking to somebody and I think I've clicked, but then like where do you actually, you know, cross the chasm and say like, hey, I want to be a protege. I want you to be my mentor. Because like that sort of like interaction is kind of hard to formalize, I guess. Like how would you approach it? How would you like, how have you done it in the past?
Yeah.
And what would you advise the women in this room and men about how to find a mentor?
And, you know, women, you know, we need men as allies, and you know, the workforce today is so integrated, and we really need to support each other, you know, on our journey. And you know, what I would say is that I would find, you know, I would find a mentor who would do the things that I said, that would tell me the things I would need to know. And they would help me, what I would call, sort of chart my path of like who you really need to know in an organization to be successful. And you would sort of lay out, these are the executives. You know, as you're progressing in Booz Allen, as an example, through the partnership, you know, you go through a series of levels until you get, you know, selected for certain roles and jobs, et cetera, and eventually, you know, you get asked to maybe be on the leadership team, which is what happened to me. But as I was, you know, entering, you know, the partnership, I needed to understand like who's who in the zoo, and so you almost do a little bit of a Harvey Ball chart, and you say, okay, I know Jimmy Joe, and I know him a quarter. How am I going to have an interesting, important interaction with him? And sometimes you only need one interesting, important interaction with somebody. The CEO doesn't necessarily have to know everything about you and appreciate all the gifts that you have in order for you to get to advance from one level to the other, but he needs to understand sort of who you are. And so having that one single strategic, important, you know, interaction with that person. And I basically use this strategy throughout my career to kind of chart who I need to know, how well do I know that person, how well do they know me, and what set of interactions could I have with them that is grounded in a business purpose, right? It can't be grounded in, hi, I just want to go say hi to you and how's your day today. It has to be grounded in a business purpose. Maybe I take on some interesting internal initiative, which you never get a ton of credit for, but if you take one of those things on, you might be able to engage with somebody at a higher level that's leading that, and they can get to know your work ethic and what you care about, what you're passionate about, and how you work, and how smart you are, and the kind of things that you've accomplished in your career. So you have to be strategic about your career. You can't let it to chance, right? You got to own it, you got to drive it, and it's at every level, right? In every organization. If you want to advance, you know, you fill out that chart. What's the next set of things I want to do? Who do I need to know? What kind of interactions do I need to have? What kind of experiences do I need in order to even have a conversation with that person? So if you really are purposeful about that, I think you can chart out your path and chart out your career. Now listen, did I do that every single day, and did I have my chart and I pulled it out every time I was going to walk up and meet somebody? No. But I think it's a good exercise, and when I mentor people, I kind of walk them through them, because they'll come up to me and say, oh, Susan, you know, I've been here forever, I'm umpteen years, I haven't got promoted, you know, what can I do? And you know, I tell them, like, look, let's chart your path. What do you really want to do? What do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you know how to do? Who do you know? And we go through this exercise. And I think even one time doing it, it just helps you be more aware of it. So when you have the opportunity to make that pitch to somebody you know or you need to get to know, you're ready to do it. You know, you have your elevator speech, you know what you're going to say, and you're ready to have that conversation. So that's how I think about it.
I mean, do you have to be like formal about it? Like say, like, Susan, hey, could you be my mentor, and can we meet like every 2 months? I mean, do you have to be like that?
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't? Okay.
No, it really works. I mean, yes, there's sponsorship, and it's good to have somebody who's your advocate, but sometimes over-sponsorship can actually hurt you, right? Because everybody's like, oh my God, are they talking about Susan again? Can you stop already? I'm done with her, right? You want to have an equal set of relationships with the people who are the decision makers on advancement and and talent progression. So it's important that you really not put your eggs in one basket, that you really diversify yourself, and you seek a lot of different feedback. I've seen people derail, inside our organization when they've had an an over advocate or over sponsorship.
So if you guys are on social media, Twitter, hashtag Startup Grind at Susan Penfield.
Yep,
That's amazing, actually, that you actually have
I have
that.
my own, yeah.
Because I had David Bradley last month. He didn't have a Twitter handle, so.
And he is amazing.
So I know that you're involved with Seed Spot, which is the very big women tech. So I want to actually just that topic with women in tech. How can the technology? I mean, this is like a very big issue right now with technology because, I mean, obviously, it's predominantly white male, Asian male right now, and I come from an engineer school, and it's like I saw it, right? I saw it, right? And it's like, you go into a CS class, and it's like 100, literally 100, white male would be one girl there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was 15 years ago. It's changed a lot more, but
Yeah.
so how can the tech world be more inclusive? That could include other women and underrepresented communities. That's essentially like this is the biggest wealth generation of mankind right now that's happening.
Yeah.
How can we have more inclusion into this wealth sharing?
Yeah. How many women in here are technology focused in their career? Okay, good. I like it. Great. So, one, I would say, from my vantage point, I need to be really intentional about, women and minorities in my teams and giving them opportunities and exposure to the kind of things they need to be able, to advance. So, I need more women role models at the top who have, a technical background and are driving a technology-related business. And you really got to do it with purpose, and you have to do it every single time. So I sit in a room and I do, promotions and advancements, and I'll get a list, and it will be maybe 2 women of top talent, right, of 2 women and 72 men. No offense, men in the room. But I have to say, hey, did we think about these 6 people who aren't on the list? They're really amazing. They're maybe deep reaches. They could use an opportunity to do this, that, and the other thing. And we can help position them so that we have them in the pipeline for the future. So from my vantage point, what Susan can do every day inside Booz Allen, I can be really intentional. I can ask the question, and I can ask it over and over again and change the culture to have the conversation that way. So that takes time. I think on the other side, it's the pipeline, right? The pipeline of talent that is out there. And it's amazing that I had as many hands as I had in here today, but we need to start with, gals who are in kindergarten, right? Kindergarten through grade 4 or 5. We need to really be intentional about exposing them to technology. These boot camps like Girls Who Code, I love Reshma Sawani. If you guys have read about her, she's amazing. She had a political career. She lost her election in Chicago. She came back from it and said, I want to do something, with purpose. She started Girls Who Code. She has amazing boot camps all over the country, but we're exposing young girls and making them not afraid of technology. And I think that's a really important thing that we need to do. There needs to be more of that. So I think girls at that age need role models. Like Dora the Explorer should be a computer programmer, right? We need to have these things that are pushed to us day in and day out, to your children, right? And my nephews and nieces, every day they are seeing these videos and shows, et cetera, and we have to change the game there. We got to get Hollywood and Netflix and everybody else to really put role models out there for children that are tech savvy, that are women and minorities. It's absolutely 100% important. Mm-hmm. And to that end, Booz Allen actually wrote it. We invested in a book that we now have, and we didn't get any copies tonight, but if people are interested, give Logan your name and we'll get you a book. It's called The Imagine It Book, and it was written by a woman in New York. But the intent of that is to really talk about careers in STEM. And so there's all kinds of fun exercises in it, and it helps you think about the kind of things you could do as a child, when you grow up, whether it's a scientist or whether it's a programmer, a computer programmer, or whether it's some sort of engineering feat. And so I think these kind of things got to get mainstream in our culture to really create that pipeline, because as women get get older and they're not exposed to that, they don't necessarily choose technology. And I was happy to talk to a gentleman tonight here in the front row who told me both his daughters are in engineering, and technology programs, and that's great, but as parents, you have to also push this. So to me, it's a cultural shift, and it can't be done by me. I can do my part that I can do inside Booz Allen, but we're all responsible for this change, and we all really need to push it because we need more amazing women in technology to really drive it forward.
So I like that, having girls exposed early, kindergarten,
Yep.
and parents, they have to share the load as well to expose their daughters to tech. So I wanted to dig in with the Seed Spot involvement, right? So you were on the board for Seed Spot. So talk about that. Like, how did you get involved with Seed Spot?
Yep.
And what do they do? And then also talk about the partnership that you have with Booz Allen and Seed Spots.
Okay, so Wayne Chen in the audience introduced me to Seifer Gresham in the audience, who Seifer is a VP at Seed Spot, and Wayne is one of my guys at Booz Allen. But Wayne thought that given my sort of penchant for philanthropic things, that I would be, and the fact that I was, running the innovation group, that I would be really interested in a group that does social entrepreneurship. And sure enough, I was absolutely interested in it. And I met Seifer. Actually, I had a phone call with Seifer, and it was a bad day because there was actually a terrible shooting that day when I talked to Seifer. And here we are on another day where there's a shooting. But we had a great conversation. I was really interested in what they were doing, and basically, they are providing boot camps and resources, et cetera, to help entrepreneurs who want to do social good come to life and start their companies. They were founded and born out of Phoenix, where they have done some incredible work there. And I don't have all the numbers, so Seifer, you'll have to tell everybody after all the amazing things that you guys have already done. But they decided their next location would be in DC. It was very much around the time that Kurt and Wayne and I and others were getting ready to open up the Innovation Center, and we said, wow, one-day partnership with Seed Spot, who will bring really our values to life, Booz Allen's purpose and values, which is empowering people to change the world, together with Seed Spot, who is doing social entrepreneurship. Wouldn't that be a great marriage? So I got introduced to Courtney Klein, who's the CEO, and I know she's currently, I think, 9 months pregnant today, and certainly would have been here if she could, but she is an amazing entrepreneur, and this was not her first rodeo. Seed Spot is, I think, maybe the second or third thing that she's done, but as a founder, she envisioned, a safe place for entrepreneurs to really, learn and grow and prosper and be connected to a network where they could start up these amazing companies. And so that's exactly what they did. And they came to DC. They launched some boot camps here. We had great demo days where we got to see some amazing entrepreneurs in action. And, I'm happy to say that all of them, are on their way to being fully fledged companies. And now Booz Allen is investing again. We are a sponsor of Seed Spot, so we make a financial donation, but we also host many of their Venture Thursdays in our space. So talk to Ian and Wayne about those if you guys want to come and hear about what some really cool social entrepreneurs are doing. So it was an absolutely perfect fit with this idea of changing the world and what Booz Allen calls passionate service, and couldn't have been a more perfect marriage. And I have been, affiliated now about 2 years, right, Seifer? And I find myself now the chair of the board, which I guess is because I'm so passionate about Seed Spot and about what Courtney and Seifer are doing. But we have an amazing plan and strategy for next year where we are also teaching entrepreneurship in schools. So we have a schools program. So back to my point about exposing people early to technology, entrepreneurship, et cetera. We have a schools program, and then we have a communities program where we're launching other startup days and demo days and launch camps and boot camps in other cities across the country. So we're super excited about what's next for us. We're in our 6th year, and I think it's only going to get better and better. We have so many great numbers of entrepreneurs that that we've launched and have become really successful, and now who are in the mode to give back to us as an organization. So it couldn't be, you know, a more exciting thing to do and a better organization to be affiliated with.
And you guys have open applications right now. When does it close?
We have our next 2-day launch camp, September 12th and 13th.
Okay, all right, so talk to Seifer if you guys are interested. And then,
For VP of Communities.
and do you guys put heavy merits if Susan refers a startup?
That's right.
Always?
Right
Okay,
here.
so-
I got one. I got a couple here I meant tonight, though, that I'm ready to launch over to
Right.
Seifer. So.
And this is exactly why we do Startup Grind, is so you guys, folks in the audience, can meet the speaker, and the speaker can help you get to the next level. So, so we're running out of time. I have a few more questions, and what I'll do is
Never fill an hour, but go ahead.
we'll open up the Q&A. I think we'll have time for maybe one or two questions.
Okay.
But before I do that, I wanted to ask about, and I always ask all of our speakers about this, but it's more about DC Tech.
Yeah.
And the question would be like, what makes DC special? What do we need to do here in DC? Because, I mean, I've seen some of the reports, and it's like, gets me angry every single time. They're like, oh yeah, here are the top, startup cities. It's Silicon Valley, it's New York, and then suddenly it's like, DC never gets mentioned, and then they'll mention like Jacksonville. It's like, what? Where's DC, right? So what do we need to do here in DC to make this like a top?
Brian, we got to get behind it.
Exactly. Let's go make a movement.
We have an X trillion dollar
Right.
federal budget. We
Right.
have, extraordinary academic institutions, all around the tri-state area. We have amazing entrepreneurs in this audience. I think it's a fractured environment, frankly, and I think we need to come together and really, create momentum behind DC. I think having Seed Spot here is an example that they came here because they saw a really cool tech scene, but there's a lot of good organizations that, we're working with Startup Grind, Decode, Defense Innovation Board, DIUX, and
I-Corps.
1776, right? All these great organizations, Halcyon. We need to come together, and as a consortia and really gain some momentum. So I don't know about you, Brian, but I'm committed to doing that, and I think we could get together and try to make something happen. And I will launch and host some things out of our DC Innovation Center.
Right.
I think if we can get like some sort of startup board for DC and get the DC government behind us, we can do that. I think it would be great.
Cool. We were going to have the actual interview at the Innovation Center, but they're like, we want to do it somewhere else, so it's like so we can look cooler, right?
Well,
This is a really cool spot. So.
I can't beat this space. It's awesome.
So we're going to open up to Q&A. So anybody that has any questions for Susan? Okay. Before I do that, is there any VIP or City Pass members that may have questions? No? Okay. All right, so let's start with you. So.
Do I stand up or?
Yeah, you can stand up, yeah. So, but just kind of project so you can get.
Hi everyone, my name is Simran Sifrani. I'm actually an engineer at Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm in the cyber field, and I actually am the CEO of my own startup. I'm graduating college next month, so getting out of my comfort zone like everyone at Booz tells me to. So I'm here, so thanks for being good influences on us. I have a good idea of what a good mentor is supposed to be like. I think a lot of us have an idea, but could you describe like your ideal mentee, like some qualities you would want?
Sure. So my ideal mentee obviously is enthusiastic, ambitious, but not wearing it on their sleeve. Somebody who says yes and who really wants to put the time and energy into what they want to do next. So I love people who want to come in and come up with ideas to do extra things inside the firm to help themselves, really advance and grow and develop new and different skills. So to me, it's all about enthusiasm. I think a lot of smart people in the world, tons, right? Lots of great intellect out there. But you got to combine that with this enthusiasm and this can-do attitude. And those kind of people, for me, they get a lot of my time. And I spend a lot of energy with people who will say yes, whose cup is half full.
Okay. I think we can do like 2 or 3 or 4 questions. So, okay, I see you. I see a guy there, but I'll make you the 4th one to answer. We'll try to get all the women here. Okay. So, all right. Why don't you? You had a question? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Stand up and.
Hi, I'm Kate Hunt. I'm at Booz Allen. My question for you is about artificial intelligence. So we find that there are a lot of decisions that have to be made before the legal and ethical frameworks catch up. So things like the spelling problem or maybe algorithms conveying bias. So how does Booz Allen want to address those problems or take those risks or not take those risks?
Well, we certainly, want to look at every technology holistically and understand the pros and cons of each technology that we invest in. And so absolutely, we need to consider, any kind of, ethical considerations when a technology is applied to a problem. And it's something that you have to do on balance. And so it's something that we absolutely think about. We have a whole set of efforts under our AI investment. We're actually exploring some of that, and a lot of the ways to work through it is through use cases, like what kind of, how do you apply this technology to a number of different kind of problems that you're trying to solve in the federal sector, in the commercial sector, and kind of weigh it out. And so I think once you game those kind of things out, you can come up with the right questions to actually ask and really understand it better. But it's something that we absolutely think about, and we absolutely do.
Okay, wait. Actually, I want to ask a question because it was a question I kind of missed out. But so mega trends. So AI. Do you have any opinions on blockchain, crypto?
Yeah, we actually have one of the first instantiations of blockchain in the federal government. It's actually for the Food and Drug Administration, and it's an exchange of public health information during a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so we are investing in blockchain. Mm-hmm. We are incubating it along. Mm-hmm. We have some use cases also up in the work that we're doing in our cyber center, adjacent to the National Security Agency. So there's some things that we're doing there around exploring that technology. We absolutely see, the merits of it and how it can secure, data and infrastructures, et cetera. I don't think that we have enough use cases yet for it, and so that's what we're trying to explore, more use cases for that technology.
What about blockchain health?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
You're saying, okay.
We think that there's a lot of merit, in finance, in health, but you don't necessarily, it's not taking off as much in the commercial sector, and like I said, we have the first instantiation in the federal sector. So these use cases are some of the things that we're coming up with in our innovation environment, where we're doing more of the R&D and building out these blockchain use cases and scenarios to test the technology. And then you can go to a client, because I think a lot of clients might not understand what the technology really does. And so I think when you bring it to life through solving a mission or a challenge in a client space, you're able to really articulate what the technology is good for and what it's not good for.
So if there's startups that are like in the crypto blockchain space,
we're interested.
They're interested. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we're interested.
All right, so we get another one, another female. Anybody? All right, I can get you. Yeah, what's your question? Lee, what's your question?
I love the guys too.
I'm Wade. I'm a guy. I do not work for Booz Allen. So I guess my question on innovation is, if you build a center, is it a question of, if you build it, they will come in terms of innovation, right? It's not just a question of like, hey, here's a 3D printer, innovation, right?
Right.
And then I guess related to that, if you have an innovation department, does it say the other departments are not innovative? And how do you then get them to come along on the ride?
Yeah, sure. So it's a good question. So, one, I think the spaces are configured so that we promote collaboration, between and among, different teams. So a lot of teams actually apply and work at the Innovation Center. So it's really to bring different teams together working on completely different projects, and you're hoping that some, symbiotic things happen, while they're together in that environment. And we also have like R&D labs where we're the things that we're investing in at the top line and innovation are being done. But as it relates to the markets, inside Booz Allen, we have a defense group, we have a intelligence group, we have a civilian group, we have a commercial and international sector. The SIG underpins all of those markets, and we have market liaisons and innovation ambassadors who work with those teams to make sure that we're driving the innovation, back into the market. So think about innovation horizons, with Horizon 3 being sort of 2 to 5 years out. That's the kind of things we're investing in today. We're building new capability technology, working with startups, working with large technology partners. In the Horizon 2, it's things that we're actually testing in the market. So what we really like to do is collaborate with the market, bring that technology, go to market together, compel a client about something that we're doing, and eventually sell that technology to that client, whether we influence a procurement or we actually innovate on a job that's already underway on delivery. So we have a construct that helps us actually integrate and plug right into the market so that they are aware and cognizant of all the innovation that we're doing. And it's worked really well. And I think that's been a journey for us, because when you first stand up an innovation group, you don't have things that are at the ready. You need to take 3 to 5 years to actually build that Horizon 3 technology. And now that we have that technology, it's payoff time, right? We're now taking all of that technology to market. And in fact, yesterday, we had an event where our civil group and all their leaders came together with the innovation group, and we had an exchange of the kind of things that we're doing, getting them up to speed so that they can go to market on their own with our materials, our intellectual capital, or with us to actually sell that and solve problems for our clients. So it is purposeful and orchestrated.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Okay.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm also not from Booz as well. So I started my own startup called Cybergen, and one of our big social responsibility efforts is to build IT learning centers in Cambodia. And we're building that one next year in April. So what advice do you have for young women and men about junior high type of age? What type of tools would you suggest to start influencing them so they can do great things?
So in terms of technology or cyber or just...
Yeah, like technology, like Khan Academy, Code.org, Grasshopper, like what would be your recommendation to teach these?
Yeah, I've been affiliated with a couple of groups here in DC, so I know that, Khan Academy is great. A lot of my friends who have children and grandchildren, go there. I am high on this Girls Who Code. I think they do a great job. I tell you what, I have a great partnership with both the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts at Booz Allen, and they are really doing great things in terms of exposing kids to a number of different things in terms of, entrepreneurship, technology, mentorship, all different kinds of things. I think they have a really good program, and we actually had a Girl Scout event at our Innovation Center where we launched our Imagine It book. But I think there's a lot of really good organizations around. I think Seat Spot, right? You're going to, in the schools, they are also hosting entrepreneurship classes. And I mean, look at your school and ask for those kind of things, right? Can our public school system actually have one of these entrepreneurship classes? We're trying to get into as many schools as we can, and we're certainly trying to break into the DC area. But there's other organizations, I think the organization called Build here in DC that is also focused on entrepreneurship in schools. So there's a lot out there, that I think kids can get exposed to. But, depending on how well-rounded, like if you want to really be on tech and you want somebody to get focused on, coding. I think if you have a daughter, Girls Who Code is great. I mean, Khan Academy seems to be doing really well for for a lot of other kids who are out there, to really let them work at their own pace and be able to do a lot of that at home, which I think is important.
And Trump, he's flown by here twice.
That's great.
Saying, hey, how's it going?
Let's go to Booz Allen.
So I got 2 last questions because we have to wrap up. Ran out of time. So the first question is, rewind 20 years ago, and you're sitting in a crowd, and you're, sitting and hearing a badass, executive from a big company. Like, what would you want to hear the best piece of advice? Like, what would be the best piece of advice you would have given yourself 20 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, the best piece of advice that I would, what I would give myself years ago is to ask for what you want. I think, with my upbringing, being more of the good Catholic gal. I didn't always feel like it was appropriate to kind of, just burst right in and ask for the things I want. And I think what I found over time in my career is that if you ask, people will actually want to help you and support you and want to hear. And people are waiting to be asked, right? I know that I love when people come to me and ask me to help them with a problem or a challenge or ask for an opportunity. I mean, that just really gets me jazzed. So I think, really my old self would say, ask for what you want. Don't be afraid. Be fearless.
All right, and the last question, it's probably the most important question out of all the questions.
Okay,
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So who's your favorite superhero and why?
Okay. All right, ladies, who's my favorite superhero? Wonder Woman, of course. Wonder Woman, who
Okay.
has,
Why?
healed the ails of mankind. So, I mean, an amazing role model, like I said, in the movies. I'm so excited that Wonder Woman emerged at this time because we need it, right? We ladies and we girls need it, and she is an amazing, media role model for all of us. And I mean, strong, powerful, asking for what she wants. Kicking A and taking names is important. I don't want to swear on a YouTube, but I think she's an amazing, she's an amazing role model in the world today for all of us gals.
What about, you had another role model that you want to talk about? So.
Yeah, I am a big admirer of Oprah Winfrey, and reason being is she's a self-made woman, and you cannot argue with what she has accomplished, as a human, number one, as a woman, and certainly as an entrepreneur. And this is a woman who fails, shuts those things down, and goes on to the next thing. So, an entrepreneur, an actor, a producer, a media mogul. She is an incredible role model, I think, for all women. And for any of you who saw her on the Golden Globes, I thought she gave the most incredible speech that I have ever seen a woman give. And I was just inspired by it. I had tears in my eyes. I think she's amazing. And so, more power to Oprah. And, if she wants to run for president, go do it.
Well, you hit right the hour just now, so, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Penfield.